We go now to Mr. Motz for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Chair, and thank you very much for being here, witnesses. And Commissioner, I specifically want to thank you for the work that you and your members have done on this file that you didn't give it up 11 months ago and longer. And thank you for the work that you've done and bringing this as far as you have, and I wish you the best in continuing to work on it. I do have a question. When you're dealing with sensitive national security information, not necessarily you, Commissioner, maybe this is more to Mr. Nguyen, when you're dealing with national security, sensitive national security information, who can declassify that? Who has the authority to do that?
The owner of the intelligence products. So, for example, let's say you have something that have been published or released.
That's the standard in the intel world. The owner can release it. Now you are a consumer of that. You don't create your own intel. You're as the national security intelligence advisor to the PM. You're the consumer of intelligence, right?
Right.
So who did you get to authorize the release? You don't call it sensitive information or it was classified. But I mean, I read the National Post article. I'm telling you what. That's pretty sensitive information, pretty classified information. So someone above you, who the owner of that intel had to give you authority to release that to the Washington Post, did you not?
So as I said many times, we have not shared classified information with the journalists. Maybe I can add that what we discussed with the journalists was exactly what we told all your leaders when we briefed your leaders.
Right. Including Mr. Poilievre.
Including Mr. Poilievre.
Thank you. And again, I don't want to play semantics, but I mean, I would consider some of the information that you told was not made public, would not normally have been made public under different circumstances. Commissioner Duhaime has made that very, very clear. It could impact the criminal investigation and jeopardize the lives of many individuals. Commissioner, you stated very recently, I don't know the exact time, but within the last week or so, that you would have concerns if the 6 diplomats were to be replaced. Does that remain your position?
Yeah, my comment was that I do have concerns considering how the government of India operates, but I also shared in that same interview that I'm not familiar with the background process that's in place when a diplomat or a consular official is appointed to a country. So perhaps Mr. Morrison would be better placed to explain on the security side or checks.
I was just going to ask Mr. Morrison, do you share those same concerns, and what does that look like for global affairs?
We will continue to let the dust settle, and then there's a lot of dust, and then we will work with our counterparts to ensure that both sides have adequate representation in each other's countries. There's a process of screening where when a country applies to accredit its diplomats, we work as Global Affairs Canada with the security agencies to ensure there's no adverse information. And assuming that's the case, then we accredit new diplomats.
Thank you. And quickly, Commissioner, you had mentioned here just a couple minutes ago about it's reasonable to assume, in fact, it's occurring, that India also experiences violent extremism, differently than we do here. You indicated that that's a reality. Now, is it possible that criminals from Canada are giving direction to operas in India, just like it's alleged to be vice versa to Canada?
I mean, after coming out on October 14th, anything's possible. We can't discount that, but that's the importance of working with our colleagues in India so we can work together and address the people who are involved.
Thank you. 5 minutes.
Thank you for that. And I have a quick question. I've really been intrigued today by Mr. Morrison and Mr. Nguyen. I'm going to quote your words back to both of you. You have both said that you've decided to go to the Washington Post to make sure you went to a respected and credible newspaper. by that, do you feel there are no respected or credible newspapers in Canada?
Go back to, I think we said international outlet, sir. And this is a very
you did
important.
say you wanted to go to a respected and credible news source, and you used the Washington Post.
I think I explained that, and that has nothing to do, quite the contrary. And I also said in my opening remarks that the pretension of India are not right, but they pretend that our India file is politically motivated, and that our media are into that scheme too. So this is why we use an international outlet, because we knew that those allegations from India would resurface. So that was the nexus and the reason to go with an international outlet.
Thank you, Mr. Shipley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. McGregor spoke about the relationship with our allies and what all this means to the situation with India. And Mr. Morrison, you were saying earlier that in the Washington Post article, you wanted to talk to your allies and send a message to counter the disinformation from India. So my first question is, why did you decide to talk to your allies through the media? Is it because you were targeting the public in allied countries? I imagine there were already conversations going on with the allies. And my second question, what does this mean for our relationship with other countries that engage in foreign interference in Canadian institutions? The fact that India doesn't want to cooperate, what does it indicate? Even though you said we're not in the same place at all with what we're experiencing with India, Russia, China, we're not at the same stage. Well, what does this mean for Canada's relationship with countries like China and Russia? Maybe Ms. Drouin or whoever is in a position to answer.
Merci pour la question.
Thank you for the question. With regard to the first part of your question about the allies, we did talk with our allies a lot before we went to Singapore.
Is not unique to Canada. We've mentioned the Five Eyes. I have mentioned that we did things in lockstep with our allies all the way through Singapore and when we returned to Singapore, and frankly since, because other countries are also talking to India. And I don't mind saying our media strategy continues as well, because there are various ways to send messages and to correct the record, because believe me, India is coming at us full force with their own narrative, which simply doesn't add up. So allies have been an important part of this from the beginning, as have strategic public communications.
Merci,